in the old days. It could also happen if a woman tried to juggle a career and family responsibilities that, like her in-laws, would say, oh, but she's a bad mother, dropping her kid at childcare.
Oh, in-laws, commentaries, obviously, okay. Obviously. Challenges every woman has, okay. Welcome to Vanita and Araya podcast with me, Cerita, and today we're going to talk with the Germany ambassador to Indonesia, Ina Lepel. Welcome, Ina, to Vanita and Araya podcast. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to join your podcast.
Oh, and in your busy schedule, we're very honored to have you on our podcast. We're going to talk generally about your, experience in diplomacy and as well as a woman in politics, I'd say, because we all have seen that women face challenges in terms of, being in the political landscape, and probably diplomacy is also one of the fields where women experience different challenges than men, in general. Okay, but before we go into, that women empowerment thing, maybe we can start with taking a closer look to your personal journey. How did you, think about pursuing a career in diplomacy?
Well, basically, I was always very interested in international affairs, in how people in different countries live, how they overcome their issues, and how countries work together. So I always wanted to work in internationally related fields, and then I came across a job advertisement from the German Foreign Office, even before I started studying. And I thought, oh, this sounds super difficult, but it's something I will keep in mind, maybe it works out. And when I had finished my studies in economics,
I studied economics.
I studied
in
economics,
undergraduate.
yeah.
Was it undergraduate?
Until masters.
Oh, and then masters also economics.
Yes, okay. And after I had that, because every year they do the job advertisement and it was out again. Mm-hmm. So I thought, oh, this fits for my schedule, I will just try. Because the procedure for applying is a bit lengthy. Uh-huh. One had to take a written test in August, and then they would spend a lot of time checking these because there was no technology. Nowadays tests are automatic, but they had to do everything handwritten. And then they had interviews for the ones who passed the written tests, which happened in my case. And suddenly I was in. And I have been in that career for more than 30 years now.
More than 30 years.
I'm quite happy with it.
How many countries have you been posted at?
I've been posted to, actually, I guess 5 countries.
5 countries. Are they all like in Asia, Africa? Or?
Mostly in Asia, but I had one in New York at our UN mission and one in Georgia.
Okay. So you grew up in Germany and then you went to see the world through a diplomacy career?
That's right, yes.
Wow, 30 years of career must be, a lot of experiences, a lot of things. So was it like you imagined it would be?
Actually, I didn't have too concrete expectations, but as far as I had them, it pretty much matched, because one goes to live in the foreign country, one tries to understand how it works, to meet the important people, and to really also meet the people who may not be important in terms of status, but in terms of being able to explain things to you, to be the cultural bridges. So it's one feels one's way, one realizes that there are difficult interactions sometimes, that there can be culture shock, that especially between Europe and Asia, the communication is sometimes very different. Especially in Germany, you are very direct. We say yes, yes, no, no. And here it's,
what was your first culture shock that you experienced? What was it?
I went to Thailand, where it's also a bit like this Europe-Asia thing, more indirect, always very polite. But sometimes, if after some time you don't get an answer, you figure out it probably means no.
How many years did you spend in Thailand?
2.5.
Oh, 2.5, okay. So along the way, you started to pick up other cultures as well.
Yes.
Okay. Now zooming into you as a woman in politics, right? Like I mentioned in the beginning of our conversation, I studied political science in my undergraduate study. So I learned a lot about how political opportunities for women have been quite different from for men. Is it the same thing in Germany? Really,
Yes.
when you started?
When I started, we had 9 women out of 60 in my batch.
Wow.
And they were
9 out of 60.
9
okay.
out of 60, yeah. So they were actually proud that they had 15%, because in the batches before it had been less.
Okay.
Because at that time, diplomacy was really not a women-friendly profession. You had to move a lot, and back in the late 80s, which is when I joined, societal expectations were still that, for the male diplomats, of course, the women would follow to whichever postings he would go. But for the women, it was more difficult, because it would be very unusual for a spouse to quit his job and everything to follow the wife. So
all over
the female applicants all got the questions how they were going to manage that. And as far as we could figure out from asking the other male participants in the competition, they did not get that questions, because it was supposed to be clear. Oh yeah, that you marry, your spouse will follow along. So it was quite a different situation from what it is today. I must say we have come a long way since then.
If you don't mind, would you share to us, like, what was your answer? Did you get that question as well?
I got that question and I said, well, I'm single at the moment, and so the issue doesn't come up.
Okay, so it's irrelevant for me right now.
Yeah, so
the challenge was more like the traditional role of women in the family, right? So, but you just straight ahead said, like, oh, it's irrelevant for me right now because I'm single at the moment, and then that's it. But was it also for other women, they didn't pursue that career because of that reason as well?
I suppose, because I don't think women are less smart or less knowledgeable. But I think at the time, and sometimes even today, many women shy away from that career because they feel, oh, at some point, if I want to have a family, it may be difficult. Because yes, it is really a challenge for families, because kids have to change school and the spouse has to change jobs. It's not always straightforward.
But it's quite different today, right? And there's also a cultural shift.
Actually, there's been a cultural shift, and the government and the Foreign Office is actively working on improving women's participation in diplomacy. They are developing all kinds of models to make it easier, also for the family responsibilities. The federal government has introduced paternal leave, so that it becomes more attractive also for the men to take months off work in order to take care of the family. Yeah. In the old thinking, the general expectation was, once the woman has children, she basically
done.
She quits the job, she takes care of the family.
But it's not the case anymore.
Now it's perfectly fine for the woman to return to work after a while, but we are not out of the woods, because what's happening in Germany is that many women, once they have a family, they apply for part-time work, because for some reason in Germany as a society we didn't manage to create enough opportunities for childcare. So it's quite difficult to find a place, especially for a small child, to be taken properly care of, especially to cover a full-time working mother. So having a childcare center that opens at 8 and and closes at 6 is actually hard to find. So many women figure that, oh, this is super stressful, I always have to run, and I never feel quite comfortable either at the workplace or at the home, because I always feel I'm neglecting one of my duties. So let's just stay at home or do part-time work. And that's, of course, a problem for women empowerment, because it may work out like that for a couple of years, but then usually in many cases, with part-time, one has less experience than a man who has been doing full-time work, or maybe even in a very challenging position where he takes a lot of responsibility, has to do a lot of overtime, but also gains a lot of visibility to the higher-ups. As a part-time job, women tend to be given the less visible jobs, of course. So there is some structural imbalance that is still very much there. But we also have some very positive examples of women and mothers in the Foreign Office who are doing really well, who overcome the challenges. The Foreign Office has its own childcare center. That's very close to the office, so the mothers or fathers, hopefully also the fathers, can drop the kids and go and do their job and then pick them up after a full time of work. And so it's slowly getting better.
How long ago you observed like drastic changes in terms of women, opportunities for women to work in this field?
Actually, it's been a gradual progress ever since I joined.
Oh, I see.
Because when I joined, as I said, we had 15% women, and it has been steadily growing.
So every year it's growing.
Every year, yeah. We are sort of scratching the 50%. It's still not quite there, or we have a higher dropout rate of women, because at some point maybe they discover, this is not really for me, it's too stressful, and the family and all that. So that's still an issue, but I think we are really making progress. And the societal expectation and the perceptions is more that it's the normal thing for a woman to have a career and not to be frowned upon, because in the old days it could also happen if a woman tried to juggle a career and family responsibilities, that like her in-laws would say, but she's a bad mother, dropping her kid at childcare.
And in-laws, commentaries, obviously, challenges every woman has. Okay. Do you observe any differences between women in politics among probably in Asian countries versus in European countries, probably in Germany specifically?
I wouldn't really say that's a difference between Europe and Asia. Maybe statistically. In Europe we have a higher rate of participation of women in parliament. And maybe also in the corporate sector. But if I just take Germany and Indonesia, it's interesting that Indonesia has a sort of quota for parliament, for women. And in Germany we have a quota for the corporate sector. Not the whole corporate sector, just the very few companies that are traded on the stock exchange and have a certain minimum number of employees.
I see.
They have to have 30% women in the boards. It's a gradual process. The law is not aimed to kick out men from board seats, but whenever a board seat becomes empty, vacant, then it should be filled by a woman until the 30% are reached. And if it cannot be filled with a woman, it has to remain vacant. And that's how in this group of companies, they have achieved 19% now.
19%. And that is already a huge progress.
Which is a huge progress, because it used to be very, very little.
Less than 10%.
At some point they made a statistic saying there are more persons with the name of Thomas than women, in the boards of the corporate
sector. Okay, so you'd say that actually challenges for women in politics are pretty much, the same, or like it happens everywhere.
It's a struggle everywhere. Although I must say, in the Scandinavian countries, they have pretty much achieved parity, because they have been really pushing it. And I guess they also have better facilities for childcare or family care work in general, because that's, in our opinion, that's what really gets women stuck, that all the unpaid care work somehow is allocated to the women, because that's still the societal and cultural expectations. If there are children, of course, the woman does it. If older relatives need special care and help, the woman is there for the kid anyway, let her take care of the relatives also. And maybe that's a bit more the case in Asian countries, because the idea of sending especially older family members into care facilities
is still taboo.
Is still taboo and is considered bad style. Whereas this is considered quite the norm, and people actually feel that, it's difficult to do this in a professional way. It may actually be better for the older person to be taken care of professionally.
Okay. In your own probably personal observation and standpoint, would you say that it matters to have women participation in diplomacy, and why? Like, why? How does have more women in diplomacy contribute to the field?
I think it contributes in the general sense of diversity, because diplomacy is so much a joint endeavor. It's in the history books, it always looks like it's this guy versus that guy, and then whoever was smarter won. But in fact, there are always big teams behind all these people. Who are the figureheads. And in my opinion, and I think it's also substantiated by studies, results are better if the decisions are made and prepared in a diverse team. Because then one gets many different perspectives and many views. And things that might be forgotten if it's only one subset making all the decision are somehow taken into account. So a problem is looked at under more different angles, and that's always better for a sustainable solution, I would say.
Different perspectives and probably like taste and preferences and values. Probably it adds, and it enriches the process of
just enriches, and it maybe prevents groups from falling too much into the traps of group things and of
biases.
Of biases, exactly.
Sure. In your long-standing, like the 3 decades of career, what are the skill set or attitudes that would you say contribute a lot in excelling in diplomacy, probably especially for women in this field?
I think it's difficult to say there is any one skill set that does it, because it depends on the situation, it depends on the country,
for sure,
and also on the position one has in the team. So it would be terrible if all of us were alpha animals. We would just spend the whole day biting each other. So it's important to have a good mix, and also people who are able to integrate that and motivate everybody and get everybody to make sure everybody contributes to really get all the perspectives in there. And so I think the challenge is and the main skill is to understand the different contexts, to realize, this situation is different from the situation I had the other time. Maybe I need to do more of this or more of that. So I think it's important to keep an open mind, to be aware of cultural nuance, because culture really matters a lot, and even with the best language skills, sometimes body language or whatever is not said is important. So I think it's useful to be attuned to things like that. And of course it's important to have a good knowledge and a capacity to learn fast about very new things. Like here in Indonesia, a very key part of what we do in our work together with Indonesia is energy transition, climate protection. So I had to learn a lot about the energy sector, which had never particularly been my field before.
Your field there.
But of course it's so important for what we are doing, and also to make sure we are working with a proper understanding of the situation on the ground. So one has to be able to learn fast and to delve into issues one had not met before.
Was there a particular like lesson that you learned probably the hard way during your career, like probably some silly story when you just arrived in a country?
Well, I think the lesson really is to, on the one hand, really keep an open mind, avoid preconceptions, because whenever I go and think I have really understood it and this is how it works, I fall flat on my face because it doesn't. There is some little thing I overlooked.
Okay.
And it's important to also keep an open mind to people who may give you a kind warning and say, oops, watch for this one. So that's also important, to be accessible and to be open for advice from the local wisdom. And that's something I at some point learned the hard way, yeah.
I would love to discuss that more in terms of Indonesia context. Like, how long have you been posted in Indonesia?
Almost 4 years now.
Almost 4 years now. Do you personally observe, probably cultural or social differences or uniqueness from Indonesia that that you find interesting, that you didn't know before?
I mean, what I find absolutely amazing and admirable is how this huge country manages its diversity. Like, maybe you saw the video when I went to the market and bought some takjil for our
buka
puasa bersama.
Yeah.
That was fun to do. And then the buka puasa bersama was also very impressive because we were a mixed group of Muslims and non-Muslims. And it was very friendly, very sociable, and everybody was following it, and nobody feeling anything wrong about that. And it was just a nice opportunity to share that. Or even in that same month, there was somebody throwing a bit of an office party because birthday or farewell or something. And that was during working hours, so still during Ramadan, during the hours when the fast is on. So some people were eating, some people were just joining without eating, but nobody felt uncomfortable. Everybody felt that, this is okay, we all follow our own rules and we don't worry our heads about what the other person is doing. And this is rare. This is not something one can take for granted, because especially when it comes to religion, many people feel very strongly and they feel, I really shouldn't be here when other people are eating or something. But it was okay, different people do different things, I do my thing, and that's really something I find amazing and admirable.
Is there any, maybe particularly culinary experience or traveling experience that you find?
It was extremely tasty.
Awesome.
Or when I'm traveling, I enjoy a bakso.
Okay,
because it's easy to eat.
But there are different bakso. You have specific.
The one, whatever is local specialty
in each region.
But I think the commonality is that you can pick your own spice. It's served separately, so it's very user friendly for me because I don't like super hot stuff.
Okay.
So I can take a little and it's still fine. And other people who join me can make it more spicy. So culinary, and it's also an amazing diversity, and every little island has their own specialty, and they're very proud of it, and they want everybody to taste it. So that's great.
It's been awesome.
But there is one issue that is really causing both sides cultural shock, and that is the whole planning method. The whole planning cycle.
Okay, please share with us, what are the main difference between how Germany plans things?
Germany plans they feel they are being organized if they say about 6 weeks before, I want to travel to Indonesia.
Okay.
Could the embassy please make some suggestions who we should meet and what we should do?
Yeah.
If Indonesians decide they may want to go to Germany. I'm not talking about a super VIP delegation, but at the DG level or something.
Yeah.
Sometimes they can come up 2 weeks in advance. And then if we transfer that request to Germany 2 weeks in advance, people will say, oh my God, I'm fully booked. It would be very interesting to meet that colleague, but I don't have space and we can't make the arrangements. We're a bit inflexible also.
Yeah.
And we like long-term planning, so at the same time then if the German side comes with their travel project of 6 weeks in advance, they expect an answer, of course, within the week. But on the Indonesian side, he's only coming in 6 weeks.
Chill.
You can chill. Exactly.
Relax,
chill.
please. It's still like 100 years from now.
It's 100 years. We have plenty of things to do before then. Anything may happen before then.
That's very Indonesian. I'm sorry, but that is true.
Yeah,
that is a very valid observation.
And the thing is that this really makes it difficult for these contacts to come about, because many travel projects fail because of this difference in planning philosophy. The German side will become frustrated after 2 weeks of silence and think, they don't want me. Okay, I go to a different place.
So you, on the other hand, you would wait.
Yeah.
You would wait for that.
So this is actually our job in the embassy to tell them, chill. Understand that for this country it's perfectly normal to be very hospitable and to make everything fantastically, but they only start serious planning like 2 weeks before. So chill, do your other stuff, and then the last 2 weeks we will do this really intensively. And most time it works, but it's a lot of communication challenge for us to both sides, to explain to the Germans that it makes sense to chill, and to explain to the Indonesian side that, could you perhaps do it a bit more early than you do?
Sorry, my people are a little bit neurotic. That's actually me. I'm the Germany in Indonesia. I have all these troubles with my team or with the society around me, precisely because I'm the kind of person who's more German in that side. And then people around here are like super chill about planning. Even sometimes they forget to plan.
Can also happen. Yes.
Would you like to add some of the more serious stuff into this conversation, probably on this energy transition? Like how would you like the public to support this? Probably there are initiatives that are ongoing
between
Indonesia and
awareness
Germany.
raising is very important. But I think Indonesian young people are very aware that climate change is on us and it's going to be a big challenge, especially for a country like Indonesia. Rising sea level, adding to the danger of natural disasters that is already high. So I think the general readiness is there, but every country faces the same problem, that energy transition to more green and more sustainable energies creates additional cost now for benefits later. And that trade-off, is a society ready to pay more in the short term for a safer energy supply and better environment in the future? That's very much a question. It's also very much a question in Germany, where the Germans are very, very much pro-environment, very green. They really want to do that. But if it costs too much money, there is also pushback from the public.
And it must be even more challenging for a developing nation like Indonesia, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, although Indonesia is lucky, you have great resources, geothermal, wind, solar. It's just a matter of technology, and that's where like the countries like the G7 Plus in the JETP and for energy transition also stand ready to support.
Is there any specific collaboration that is ongoing right now between Germany and Indonesia in terms of
we have been in the
transition?
energy sector even before this Just Energy Transition Partnership was created. We've been doing that for the last, I guess, 10-15 years, if not longer. So we built, in the old days, we built power stations. Now we are planning a big project on a transmission line. Or we just provide big loans for necessary transformations.
Yeah, loans are necessary. I think it's very important for, again, developing nation to start the transition, because as we all know, it requires a lot of funding
it's expensive.
for building, infrastructures around transitioning to cleaner energy, right?
Absolutely, and it's not just building the power stations. That's the easy part. The complicated part, which actually requires smart technology, is storage, or getting the grid flexible and smart. Because the renewables do not work 24/7. So at some point there is undersupply, at some point there is oversupply, and the grid has to manage. But that's something where technology transfer can actually help.
For the young people who are watching this, what would you say the future of diplomacy career for the next generation? Like, how would you see the diplomacy career would evolve into? Like, what are the what kind of like attitudes or frameworks or skill set that the young people who would want to pursue the career in diplomacy needs to
It's
nurture?
really difficult to predict at this point of time, where many people are saying, "Oh, with KI, with artificial intelligence and the digital age, it's not necessary to have all this diplomacy stuff anymore. It's stuffy and old-fashioned, and we don't need this."
Plus, they say countries are being more like closed right now, like less open right now. Probably like deglobalization trend.
That is also, it's very paradox that on the one hand, due to technology, it becomes very easy to interact with anyone at any spot on the world, and at the same time, yes, renationalization is happening, deglobalization is happening, because maybe all this openness and newness has scared societies that they want to turn back into themselves and preserve their perceived, assumed identity, which is a pity. But I think young people, as a rule, are curious. They want to travel beyond borders. They want to know what the world looks like beyond the borders, and not just by watching Zoom, but by actually going there, smelling different smells and talking to different people. And I think, especially since you mentioned that challenge of deglobalization, it really remains important to have people who can do the cultural transmission, who can communicate the differences and to bridge like cultural cleavages, like the planning thing we discussed, to both sides. So I think the basic skill sets of being culturally attuned, of being a good communicator,
and empathy,
and a good understanding and an ability to learn even strange things fast, that will very much remain. But I think the added challenge will be to integrate the new technologies into that. We already realized that. I can see that from my career. When I started out in the media section of our embassy in Bangkok in my first posting.
What year was it?
That was in 91.
Okay, 91. I wasn't born back then.
Okay. We were still typing press releases.
Oh, yeah.
And faxing them out.
Oh, okay. You went through all this technological evolution. Okay.
And now we are all on social media, and now we are grappling with deepfakes, massive disinformation, chatbots doing strange things. And this will probably change the face of so many things, including diplomacy. So I guess future diplomats will have to be tech savvy also, and to use that, but to also know the limitations. Because especially with artificial intelligence, depending on who feeds and trains the system, the answers one gets can also be very biased. So one still needs to be able to do a bit of fact-checking and curate. Yes.
Okay, I think we're closing in. We have lots of insights already. On the energy transition, do you have any more things to add? Probably do you have some sort of recommendation as to what sort of source of energy that Indonesian, startup doers should explore? Probably, is it geothermal? Is it solar?
Well, I guess geothermal would be too complicated for startups because it's actually quite expensive and with financial risk to develop because you drill and you don't know what you find. It may work, it may or may not work. But solar
hit and miss,
is relatively easy, but there is a regulatory issue that many industrial parks don't like companies to put solar on their roofs because there is enough electricity and the many industrial parks get a percentage of the electricity sold in their park, so they are not interested in having competition. So it would be good to maybe address the market regulation. But I guess startups are also too busy for that. Maybe they can just put their own little solar on the roof and see what happens without feeding it to the
I think my generation would like, okay, let's just start doing things, tinkering, and let's see what works. But
I just wanted to add one thing about preconceptions people have about diplomacy.
Oh, sure.
Because I often get asked by strangers with whom I engage in small talk when they learn I work in the Foreign Service. They get strange ideas, especially about this diplomatic immunity.
Oh, okay.
So some people think I can commit murder or consume drugs and go scot-free.
Going rampant.
Or somebody assumed I could smuggle antiques out of my host country like that and get filthy rich.
Without consequences.
Without consequences because of diplomatic immunity. So this is totally not the case.
Okay.
We are bound by the host country's laws and we get plenty of problems with our own system if we violate the laws of the host country. So that is not no get out of jail free card.
That's not what diplomatic immunity means.
This is not what it means. This is only to protect against abuse of the legal mechanism, but not to protect diplomats from violating the law.
Okay, Ina.
And the other thing is that there is often the idea that we spend a lot of time just socializing, hanging out at receptions,
having a tea party,
wearing fancy clothes, and eating nice food. But especially when it comes to taking care of our citizens in trouble, we sometimes have to also do arduous trips to wherever some disaster happens, or visit citizens in jail. I've been to jails in many countries, but I've not yet been to a jail in Germany.
Because you visit your Germany people out there in other countries.
In other countries.
Oh, you do visitation, you do jail visitation.
Yeah, I have not done a jail visit as ambassador, but in my earlier postings I did that.
Sure, not as an ambassador. As someone in the embassy.
Yes.
Okay, to close, do you have anything to share probably as a closing statement to Indonesian society or
well, to the young aspiring diplomats out there, go for it. When I applied for the Foreign Service, I assumed that this would be completely in vain because it looked like it would be very difficult. And maybe women tend to estimate their chances less optimistically than maybe men. So go for it and push through with it. It's very much worth it. It's a great career.
Thank you very much, Ina Lepel, for your time and for your invaluable insights on diplomacy and women empowerment in politics as well, and energy transition. Anyone who's watching, thank you. Please like, share, and comment, and subscribe to the channel of Anita Naraya, and see you on another episode. Bye.
Bye.